So the private banks, again, just to remind you, the only reason we pay tax or levies or VAT or fees of any kind in our lives is because the money that we use is supplied by a private corporation, the central bank. And our government is the channel through which this private corporation funnels the money to the people, and then we have to be we're the slaves that have to work like slaves to make interest for these private corporations, and this is how they keep control. So it's not about the money. It's never about the money. The money is the tool of enslavement to keep these banking elite in control of the planet. And this is the thing. People say, yeah, but it's going to cost too much money. It's not about the money. It's about the control. The money is the tool of control and enslavement. They will never run out of money. They have the capacity to keep on making more money because they make it out of thin air. So it's the central bank, all the other banks in Australia, all the other banks in America, all the other banks in South Africa report to the central bank. They set it up not to look like it. They make it look like it's not there. They just guide, and it's not true. They have absolute control over the banks. And in South Africa, the Bank Act has a protection clause in it, that the central bank is protected they don't have to disclose certain information about how they operate and how they work. And I'm sure the same applies in Australia as it does in the USA, as it does in all other countries. This is how they've imposed it through the original Bill of Exchange Act, the United Kingdom Bill of Exchange Act of 1820, I think it was, or 1860 or somewhere around there. And we still have the Bill of Exchange, the British Bill of Exchange Act in South Africa that's been adapted to our country, and you have the same here, and the USA has a similar version of it, and so it goes. And this is the spectacular control that they've imposed through the legal system, through the banking system that imposes the legal system, that imposes it through the governments. It's just amazing control over the whole planet. And so the People's Bank, if we were to issue money for ourselves, would we charge ourselves tax? Of course not. Would we charge ourselves levies? Oh, well, I borrowed 100 Rand from myself. I must give myself 110 Rand or dollars back, $110 back. It's an insane idea. So you just see the insanity of this whole thing, and the whole insanity of money, how money is supposed to solve all the problems in the world. Well, there's actually a great example how $100 bill could pay off the world's entire debt if you could speed it up really infinitely at like light speed. And there's a great example of the traveling salesman. And so the traveling salesman comes to town and he pulls up in front of the hotel and he walks in and he says, listen, I'm in town for the weekend and I just want to see a room. I'm very particular. Can I have a look at the room? So the hotel manager says, sure, but put $100 down on the counter, and here's the key. Go have a look at the room. So he puts $100 on the counter. He goes up to the room. At which point the hotel manager looks up and he sees the butcher across the road. He's reminded, I owe the butcher $100 for the catering of last week. So he sends the bellboy to the butcher to pay the $100. The butcher says, thanks very much. As he's putting it in the till, the plumber walks in and says, hi, I'm here for my... Hey, I owe you money for fixing my pipes last week in the freezer and blah, blah, blah. Here's your $100 that I owe you for the plumbing. The plumber says, thanks very much. He gets in his car, he drives down the road, drives past the garage, pulls in to fill up his car, and he remembers that he owes the panel beater there $100 for fixing his fender that week. He says, oh, here's your $100 for fixing the fender. The garage owner says, thanks very much. And he gets in his car to go somewhere, and he's driving past and he suddenly sees the prostitute walking down the street. And he says, oh, Sally, listen, here's the $100 I owe you for last week. And she says, thanks very much. As she walks past the hotel, she realizes, oh, she owes the hotel $100 for the room that she used last week. She walks into the hotel, she puts $100 on the counter and says to the hotel manager, here's the $100 that I owe you for the room last week. At which point the traveling salesman comes down from the room upstairs and he says, thanks very much, I don't like the room, and he takes back the $100, he gets in his car, and he drives off. What has just happened? Can you see the insanity of this thing? It's just a fictitious something that was created to enslave us. So $100 bill, if you could speed this up infinitely, could pay off the entire debt of the whole world. Everyone could pay everybody, and nobody would have any debt. And there's actually a story how the magic coin that could pay off all the world's debt, and this is just a simple example of how this could happen practically. So the whole thing of a people's bank is the beginning. It's not the final solution. But with the Ubuntu party, last year's election, we proposed that we're going to shut down the Reserve Bank and we're going to implement a people's bank that issues money for the people, by the people, tax-free and interest-free, in which case it provides 100% employment for everyone anywhere. Why can you say this? Because the job of the people's bank is not to make people rich independently, but to provide money as a tool to create things for public works, community projects, research, inventions, and so forth, through which the money then flows to the people. So everyone, anywhere, will have something to do. From the smallest little village in the mountains to the largest city, no matter what your community chooses to do, whether it's a bakery or a research lab or an engineering project or whatever, that money will be provided for by the People's Bank. That's the job. We provide the money ourselves to create abundance for ourselves. And you start realizing how easy it is to actually use the money to create this abundance. And that becomes the point of departure for people at the same time to realize that we actually don't need the money. Let's just take it back. We live in a community and we have a people's bank. When I say community, call it a town or a village. A little beautiful village down in the mountains, and there's a lovely river, and we as the community decide we need a bridge across the river because we want to get to the forest, because it takes too long to get the wood from the forest all the way around and come back into our town. So we decide as the community, let's build a bridge. So we go to the People's Bank, and the People's Bank gives us the money for the bridge. And then a year later, we want to build another bridge. And we go to the People's Bank and we get the money from the People's Bank and we build another bridge. And then the next year, we want to build a third bridge, at which point somebody says, listen, this is a bit silly. Why are we going to the bank when we know we're going to get the money to build the bridge? Why don't we just build the bridge and leave the money out of it? At which point everyone says, wow, what a great idea. Why do we actually need the money? And that's what will start happening. People start to realize that because the money is always available for everything, that people do, remember that people do everything, the money does nothing. It's used as the oil in the machine to let the people to do it. And if you take the thing out, the people still do it. They don't need the money to do it because money does nothing. We do everything. People do everything. And we've allowed money to become the hurdle to progress and the obstacle to progress. And the moment we remove it, those hurdles and obstacles magically disappear. So this is why the People's Bank is such a critical first step towards freeing us from the slave mentality, allowing us to see how we can create everything and anything we imagine, and then realizing we actually don't need the money to create it. Where is that? A bigger pardon? Yes. The same place as the central bank gets it today. Out of thin air. Out of nowhere. It just they sit on the computer and they go, you want how many? $1 million? Thank you, Mr. Smith. $1 million. Enter. You now owe us $1 million. And from that moment you have to pay interest on that. So even if you want to pay that back immediately, you're going to probably have to pay back $1 million and 5,000 within a few seconds. They just created something out of nothing and created the interest on it at the same time. That's the insanity. So we don't need a private company to create the money out of thin air. We can create it ourselves out of thin air. Thank you very much. Okay.
When you say it like that, it really shows you that
It's a scam.
We've created our own bank.
Yes.
Create our own money out of thin air.
Yes.
And we'll go around paying everybody $100 like you're talking.
Yeah.
And nothing's really happened. It's just that the way we perceive it.
Yes.
We've got that conception that, oh yeah, I've had that in exchange. You
Yes.
pay me for that, therefore
Yes.
that's,
But now we're going to see how we can get ourselves out of that. So I'm just really, again, laying the foundation of just making us comfortable with the fact that we don't really need the money, that we're the ones who do everything. The money does nothing, right? And the one great place that this indoctrination that we're grappling with here about the money thing has come from the education system. So before we, because the central banks own our governments, and the central banks are behind creating the legal systems and writing the legal systems that benefit them. This is why you can never win against the banks in a court of law. But there are a lot more other reasons why, because our countries are corporations. We're getting to that. So the fact that the legal system is there to benefit the corporations and not living, breathing human beings is directly connected to the reasons why you can't win against the banks. And in South Africa, my 4 years against Standard Bank in the Supreme Court of Johannesburg was something I guess I had to go through so I can speak about it with personal experience and not having heard about it. And there's so much I learned. I wish I could download that to everyone so everybody had that information, because what that does to you, it makes you lose the fear. It makes you lose the fear of the banks completely. The fear of the legal system. Yeah, it makes you lose the fear of the legal system, the banks, the judges, those guys and the men in black. I mean, it's insane. You walk into those courts, the Supreme Court. I don't know what it's like in Australia. At least our Supreme judges don't wear those white stupid wigs. Do they wear them here? Yeah. It's ridiculous. And the barristers in South Africa, they're called advocates. Only advocates are allowed in the Supreme Court, and they wear those black robes. We call them men in black, and they walk. Have you seen them? What happens? How many of you have been into a Supreme Court? It's like a whole new world. It's like this ritualistic, kabbalistic world that you enter, with different sets of rules, different levels of respect, hierarchy. And so these guys walk in there and they bow down. They bow down to who? To the Lord that sits on a pedestal. My Lord, your Lordship, if it pleases the Lordship, and if the Lordship would allow me to do this, and kiss the Lord's ass all the time. And then when they go out, they walk out backwards, bowing to the Lord. I'm not kidding you, they walk out backwards to the door like this.
Same here.
The first time I went in there in my t-shirt and shorts, which they don't like.
I'm not allowed to wear your sunnies on your head.
Oh, did they tell you?
If you like that,
Oh, really?
you get to send it.
Oh, really? I can't remember if I did that. I must have done that. And then when I realized that I can do anything as a layperson, because I'm not part of their bar, don't subscribe to any, I can do anything and they can't do anything to you. They can chase you out, but then you can't, then they deny you your right to defend yourself, so they can't chase you out. So you can really, and when you get over that fear that you can do anything in that court, you can jump up and down whenever you want and say, sorry, I don't understand, please can you explain to me what he says? And the judge goes crazy and you keep interrupting the thing, just cause havoc. I'm not kidding you, you learn that, but you first have to lose your fear. The first time I went there, I nearly shat myself, because it's an intimidating place to be, and they make sure they intimidate you. And they use fear tactic to do that to the poor people. And the people get dressed up in suits to go to this place, for God's sake, I go in there in my shorts.
Going in there as a defendant?
Yes.
As an observer?
Well, both, as an observer and a defendant. The one day I walked in my shorts and shirt, and the judge had a go at me. And I just responded to the judge, I said, sorry, I didn't get the brief on the dress code. And you should have seen, I was the only guy dressed, everyone, men and women in black, with shock and horror throughout that whole court. And this was one of the big courts, there must have been 250 of them. And so that's on a Monday morning, I think, when they hand out all the cases, which judge is going to deal with which case. So I stood there waiting to see when they're going to, allocate you to which court and so forth. And I was standing there in my golf shirt, and my shorts, and the judge said, "Why are you dressed like that?" I didn't get the brief on the dress code, I'm sorry. Jeez, like you could hear a pin drop in that court. But what I'm saying is that, what ended up is I lost the case. You can't win the case because they paid the judge off. And for those of you that are not aware what I'm talking about, I use I bought a property on spec thinking I'd make money out of it. Wrong. And eventually I sacrificed it to go into this process to actually find out about this illegal banking system, and I sacrificed that property, which I lost. And but it was the experience that I needed to really understand what's going on. And in the end, they just couldn't get beyond my I don't know what, resilience, obstructiveness, or coming from with angles that other lawyers don't come from. And eventually they had to pay off the judge to pass to hand down a fraudulent judgment. And the last day of after 4 years, where I was up against the highest paid senior advocate in South Africa. I'm not kidding you. This is as senior as you can go against me, a layperson. And they'd literally walk in there. Louise will tell you, we'd walk into the court, me in my shorts and whatever, and one piece of paper with my points written on it. And the bank's lawyers were coming, 5 lawyers plus the advocate, and each lawyer had a trolley of files. I'm not kidding you. Okay, they must have spent millions on this court case against me. And eventually, on the last day, the most highly paid advocate, who in previous sessions actually blurted out that the bank accepts payment in promissory notes and bills of exchange. And I was sitting with Scott Kundal, who started the New Economics Rights Alliance in South Africa. I was looking at Scott and I went, I'll use that, and I did. I used the fact that they admitted that they accept promissory notes as a form of payment, which I then did.
Still doing?
Of course. So I ended up paying the Standard Bank, their lawyers, the shortfall on the sale of my house, because they sell it on auction, and they still hit you with a shortfall because they sold it for half the value, and I still had to pay R500,000 in on it, and then about close to R500,000 for the legal fees and court fees. So close to R1 million I had to pay the court. The house in question was worth about 700,000 rand. I ended up paying more in legal fees and shortfall. It's just, you see the insanity in this whole thing. And it's just all about the money and the control and the abuse of humanity. So in any case, the long and short of it was that in the end, they admitted that they don't have money, that they create money out of thin air, literally. That they accept bills of exchange and promissory notes, that they sell the property into securitization, that they are no longer the owner of the property. Therefore, they have no right to actually institute legal action against you. They admitted all of this to the judge. And then the judge says to me, well, do you have anything else to add? I went, well, they just admitted everything. Aren't you going to cross-examine them on this? And the judge said, no, it's my court. I'll handle the case the way I want. And I said, but I think it'll be appropriate to examine them. And then sit down. and then he says, well, if you don't have anything to say, I'm going to pass my judgment. At which point, he pulled out a piece of paper, pre-written piece of paper. This is a high court judge. Pulls out a piece of paper and reads out the judgment. The court, it was a court about this size, about 100 people in there. You could hear the whole court go, oh, where did you get that judgment from? Pre-written judgment. So it was a fraudulent judgment, obviously went against me, and the rest is history. But then I used that information against them, and I paid them off with a promissory note, which I've then shared with the rest of the world, and some people have tried it, some have succeeded, some haven't. The thing is that when you go out and you pay the banks with a promissory note, you've got to be prepared to withstand their slings and arrows, because they'll do everything to try and undermine you. The first thing they do is they just say, sorry, we don't accept it. Well, if they say we don't accept it, they have to give you a note back. In which, most cases, they don't give the note back. It's like me giving you a $100 bill. And you say, sir, I don't accept your money, but you keep it. That's what they do. So they just stolen your bill. Because it's a legal promissory note. I've made it. It's written in my hand. And they don't give it back to you. So they've just stolen your promissory note. So now you should be able to charge them with theft. But people don't know this. And it just adds to they completely abuse the system, they abuse the people, and they get away with it. That's the worst part of it. It's because they're the ones that create the law. And we're getting to that. We're going to get to that very shortly, because in this lies the great deception, how we've been so lied to and enslaved. Well, might as well talk about it now, because the president appoints the judiciary, right? The judiciary is to uphold the law of what? Of the Republic of South Africa. I don't know what it's called in Australia. I know that several provinces here are registered as corporations. Australia is a corporation as well. So the judiciary is there to uphold the law of the corporation called Australia and the Republic of South Africa. In South Africa, it's a great example because the distinction is very obvious. It's called South Africa as a country or the Republic of South Africa as the corporation. Okay? So the Constitution, our Constitution is not a Constitution of South Africa, it's a Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So it's the Constitution of a corporation, not of the people, of the land of the people. And these small, tiny little manipulations of words that most people have no clue about. And they think, oh, look, our Constitution is so beautiful. And then our Constitution starts with, we the people of South Africa, free and blah, 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 believe that the country belongs to its people. So it tells you in the first paragraph that we believe, we think it belongs to us, but it doesn't. Spectacular, the deception. And have a look at the Australian Constitution, what it says. I haven't read it, but I bet you it's just full of lies and deception.
I think, correct me, I think it was 1953 here, I was and then the dynamic Mike was talking about.
Just speak up a bit.
I think it was 1953 here. Someone could correct me that our Reserve Bank became private. But the dynamic Mike was talking about in terms of the control mechanism, you can see in our media cycle with how we follow interest rates. The Reserve Bank says it's going to change by this much, and then everyone's watching the banks next, which is what we experience in our media. We live here, quarters and smaller sections, and everyone freaks out at the tiny movements and the numbers, but it all feeds down.
Yeah.
And the reserve to what we call our big four.
Big four banks. Yeah, same. We also have the big four there. And so the interesting thing about this is as well, just the laws that they created actually are now, we've reached a stage now where these laws are actually backfiring on them. And it just recently happened with Stephen Goodson, who was one of the candidates for the Ubuntu party last year in the elections. Stephen Goodson is still a shareholder of the South African Reserve Bank, and he was a director of the South African Reserve Bank for a number of years. And after his loud mouth, he was fired as a director, but they can't make you sell your shares. So he's still a shareholder. And he just wrote these two books. The one is called History of Central Banking, which is, I really recommend you get that. And then Inside the South African Reserve Bank, which is just spectacular expose on the crimes and the robbery and the thievery inside the South African Reserve Bank, which, as you know, is one of the golden geese for the British Empire because of the minerals. They just steal it from the country. Every month they steal billions of dollars worth of minerals out of the country, and they use the people as the slaves. And some people still think, oh, good, mining is good for our country. It's bringing lots of jobs. So Stephen Goodson wrote this book, and next thing, the Hawks, the South African version of FBI or whatever, CIA or whatever the Hawks arrive at his house to interview him with the intention to arrest him. Why? Because he disclosed things that are prohibited by Section 33 of the Bank Act, which prevents him from releasing certain information about the activities of the South African Reserve Bank, which is a criminal offense. Yeah. So now they're interviewing him with the idea of arresting him, at which point Stephen phones me and says, listen, the Hawks are here, they're interviewing me, can we make a big stink about it? So I did what I could. And I petitioned the government, and we petitioned the Reserve Bank. I flew down to Cape Town. It was just at the time of the budget speech on the 26th of February. And I petitioned the Minister of Finance and the Reserve Bank, and in there was to leave Stephen Goodson alone. To shut down the Reserve Bank. Shut down the Reserve Bank, prosecute your directors, and leave our member of Ubuntu party alone. And obviously, we never heard back from them. But what happened next is that they suddenly realized that, and we were actually saying, again, baiting them, please arrest Stephen Goodson. We want you to arrest Stephen Goodson. Why? Because the following happens. If you get arrested for a crime, you can subpoena anyone in your defense. And that is not a good idea. Even if there's Section 33, you can still subpoena them. and then all hell will break loose, right? Because then all kinds of human rights are broken. And you can subpoena the director of the Reserve Bank, all the CEOs of all the banks, all the directors and shareholders of all the banks. You can subpoena anyone you want to your hearing in your defense. And they realized that this is not a good idea to arrest this guy because he knows a little bit too much. And they just left it. Once again, just like when I paid the bank with the promissory notes, they just left me alone. I think they decided it's probably better just to leave it alone. To get me back into court, you know, also the media are waking up. Media are not so blind anymore. 5 years ago, 6 years ago when we started this, we were still called. I mean, everything you can imagine, trying to wangle our way out of debt and all this kind of nonsense, because the media, the poor journalists are just completely ignorant of this whole thing. So the media inadvertently supports the system because they just don't know. But that's changing. So the education system is a critical tool to implement and install this way of thinking. And this is something that we need to realize as quickly and as soon as possible. And this is why I'm going to tell you right now what I tell everyone everywhere we go. Take your children out of school. Now, tomorrow is Monday. If you have children that go to school, don't send them to school tomorrow. Stop. Do not continue this enslavement, this brainwashing of your children, turning your children into marshmallows, turning them into us 12 years from now. They're going to be coming to meetings like this wondering what the hell happened. That they've been programmed and brainwashed to become slaves to the system. That's what this entire thing has become. People, I beg you, stop doing this. If you live in a country where you can homeschool your kids, do that right now. Stop it. You are doing yourself and your children a great disservice. This is the greatest crime that you are perpetuating against your child, and you're doing it willingly. You don't have to do this. In Germany, you cannot homeschool your children. And the people of Germany are under great stress and duress for this. And some other countries in Europe, you're also not allowed to do this. That's why some people move to Austria where they can homeschool their kids. And so it goes. So
Does it matter what school like?
I would say probably most schools, especially government schools. I think it's all, sorry?
They have to be vaccinated.
Exactly. You start seeing the enslavement system. You have to attend school, and then you have to be vaccinated to attend school, and so forth. So there was an interesting post on Louise's Facebook the other day. Somebody said, so if you're so convinced that your vaccines work, why are you forcing my child to be vaccinated?
It's also the hours our children are forced to study, which you know, I come from, my background is youth work and mental health. And when I did my training, my course in neurobiology of trauma, and one of the main traumas that they put up there was the education of our children. The way, just the hours that our children are required to study. And it's really traumatic to them.
Yes. And the whole competition, you've got to work hard. It's not easy. You've got to work hard to get to the top. You've got to be the best. And all that crap that gets fed to our children, and the stress they get put under. The stress of exam. You've got to learn and study. You've got to pass an exam. So what they do very cleverly is to expose us from very early age to the idea of stress, living under stress, because the rest of your life is filled with stress. Stress of survival, stress of job, stress of being fired, stress of fearing being fired, stress of disease. It's just the stress that we live with for the rest of our lives. They instill it in our children at the earliest of ages. And this is just the great crime against all of us. And the competition, absolutely. The whole competition, no collaboration, cooperation. Keep yourself safe. Don't share your knowledge with everyone. You know, instead of like, hey, why don't you share with your friends why you give this answer? Maybe then they'll understand it better. And there's that amazing example of this Russian school. I forget what it's called. That they have no teachers. They allow their kids to teach themselves. What's it called?
It's open learning. It's based on open learning where the child can get up and walk, you know, do 1 hour reading and then play for the rest of the time. The child can tell the teacher, you can't talk to me like that, and the teacher can listen, let's talk about this. Yeah, I've got the DVD, it's amazing.
Yeah, and they show basically the older kids teaching the younger kids, and the younger kids teaching the older kids. And within 2 years, they complete high school.
Yeah.
Most of the kids in the school actually finish all of the years in high school within 2 years. They write all the exam, that it's easy for them to understand.
They study one.
Our boy Sammy doesn't go to school at all. He's never seen the inside of the school. And we always joke with him, say, you see, it's 6 o'clock now, it's when most children get up to go to school. And he goes, wow. Sorry?
For the homeschooling in Australia, they push the criteria of the mainstream schools.
No, they don't. They don't anymore. We homeschool our daughter, and we can set the curriculum, and what they call it the natural learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
So remember that money controls the education system, and if you don't know this yet, the current education system, the way we have it today, from primary school through to university and everything beyond, was set up by the Rockefellers and the Carnegies 150 years ago. They planned it. We are now in the consequence of what they planned. We are at the zenith and the apex of their grand master plan. And the grand master plan is to create this kind of education system that's a sausage machine. A sausage machine for what? First of all, for manipulation, destroys our ability to think for ourselves. It's a great place to hide knowledge and information. Now, why do I say this? Because most people say, oh, that's where you get knowledge and information. No, it's the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. Okay, this is how far the deception has gone. And those people, and it's often the people that can't, go to university, I think, I'm being deprived of higher education. No, you've been saved. You've been, kiss the ground that you walk on and live on, that you don't go to university. Because, go and learn a trade. Go and learn how to weld, how to do wood, how to plant trees, how to grow seedlings, how to bake bread, how to shear sheep. Learn a trade, learn something. Forget school and university. And you'll see how incredibly easily this fits into the Ubuntu and contributionism way. It is so incredible when you recognize what the education system has become. It's basically, remember who funds the universities, who funds the research, who funds the printing of the curriculum books, the textbooks at school. It's all the bankers, the money, and the bankers are behind this. And all the research, when you go to university and you sign up for your PhD or your postgraduate, all the knowledge and information and any discoveries you make do not belong to you, they belong to the university. You're not allowed to publish it unless you get given permission. So any great discoveries that are made in universities are never shared with the rest of the world. They are held there. Cures for disease. This poor schmuck, that music professor that recently discovered, he thought he was the first to discover that sound cures cancer. Right? That's how ignorant he is. It just shows you. And he's a music professor. And I bet you that right now he's already experiencing the highest frustration he ever imagined he could face, because he thought he's going to be praised for the guy that found the cure for cancer. Right now, he's already experiencing the shutting down of his knowledge and information by the drug companies and the university that is preventing him from sharing that information. But luckily, he's let enough out already, because he told us it's between 100,000 and 300,000 hertz that cancer cells respond to and are destroyed. And that's fascinating, because if you ever watched John Canzias from Akron, Ohio, when he found the fact that salt water burns at specific frequencies, and he was a radio broadcaster, and he was trying to find a frequency that cures cancer, because he has heard about frequencies that cure cancer. And while he was finding the frequency that would cure his wife's cancer, he found the fact that at certain frequencies salt water burns, just like a candle, and it's magic. And in there lies more expose on the free energy, on how frequency can become the channel of free energy and save us from this enslavement system. So I'm just connecting some dots for you, how amazing some of these discoveries become, completely separate from each other, and you realize that they're actually inextricably connected. So remember who funds the research. Universities are great places that hide knowledge and information. And the main objective of our education system today is to create a future obedient labor force. That is it. Single-minded objective. What we do when we leave school, we know nothing. We can't weld, we can't build, we can't bake bread, we can't grow anything, we can't feed ourselves, we know nothing. But we have a certificate. Isn't that great? A certificate that can burn. And then we have nothing. But with the certificate, what do? We go looking for a job. And if we have this certificate, we have a really good chance of getting a job, which means we become a slave to the corporations. And the more certificates you have, the better a slave you become. And the higher education you have, the higher on the pedestal you get put, so that you become the spokesperson, because you're more indoctrinated than anybody else, and you become the spokesperson for the indoctrination system called the education system. This is why, can you see the spectacular deception in this? This is why they say, oh, it's Professor so-and-so says this. Well, he's a bloody asshole. He knows nothing. He knows nothing about life, about how anything works, nothing about nature, reality, nothing. Speak to any professor of science or physics at a university. They know nothing about the laws of nature. They promote the same Newtonian crap that's been promoted for more than a century. While more than a century ago, we've already been shown that we are the makers of our own reality. Do they teach us that at school? No. Quantum physics is more than 100 years old, people. And very clearly, already more than 100 years ago, it showed us those guys won Nobel Prizes for it, for God's sake. And then it was shoved under the carpet. That we are the creators of our own reality. This is the last thing they teach us at school today. This is the first thing they should be teaching us at school today. Sacred geometry, makers of our own reality. We would not be sitting in this room having this discussion. That's
Sound healing.
yes, and sound healing. Yeah.
You know, having a paper, you're not, as an individual, you're not good enough with those qualifications. You
Yeah.
need to have a paper.
Yeah.
It's a whole psychological abuse that comes out.
Exactly. So this is great. Yeah, take everyone with a degree and a piece of paper, a certificate that says they're entitled to something, and send them into the bush and say, adios, amigo. That's what this is about, you know. Our countries are corporations. Let's go for another 5 minutes. We can break. Was it 1:15? Break for lunch. Our countries are corporations. Remember, this is really important information. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to see it there. If you go onto the Edgar search, the U.S. Securities and Exchange website, U.S. Securities and Exchange website, and just search corporation, search company, and this is what this thing here says. It's a list of companies with name South Africa in it, and it starts with Anglo-American, South African corporation, and then the government of the Republic of South Africa, which is a corporation, and it goes Lehman Brothers, Old Mutual, and Old Mutual is a South African insurance company. When I was writing the Ubuntu book, I was doing research on the largest companies in the world, and after Barclays PLC, which is the largest company in the world, little South African insurance company called Old Mutual is the 30th largest company in the world. I nearly fell on my back. So, what? That's not from selling home insurance to South Africans. They're clearly doing something else. And yeah, it's insane. And so Old Mutual's on this, and Standard Bank, my bank that I was up against in the court. And then here we go, Republic of South Africa, a corporation. And you realize that everything is a scam. And here's another list of a few other countries and places. Province of New Brunswick, Province of Nova Scotia, Quebec, Queensland, Region of Lombardy, Republic of Argentina, Republic of Chile, Republic of Colombia, Korea, Portugal, Republic of South Africa, and it goes on, and you'll find Victoria, all of South Africa, all of Australia is a corporation, if you did not know this.
Some of our treasuries are also corporations.
Yes.
Yeah, the Queensland
that
Treasury.
are bankrupt like New South Wales.
So it's on this bit of information that in 2013 the Ubuntu party put together a questionnaire under my insistence, and we sent it to the president and to the Attorney General as a legal document, and obviously we didn't get a response, but there were some very interesting questions. Who authorized that the Republic of South Africa was to be registered as such, and why? You know, who came up with this idea? Yeah, isn't that a simple question that we should have answered? And who is the CEO of this corporation? Now, I assume the president is the CEO, but I might be wrong. It might be some invisible dude somewhere and we've never heard of. Who's the accounting officer, and what financial statements does it produce for this corporation? What are the assets of this corporation? And by now you should know what the assets are. We are the assets. Our birth certificates are the pieces of paper, the certificates that they trade on the international stock markets. And if you don't know this yet, wake up. Your birth certificate is the trading certificate. You'll find it on some stock market somewhere being traded. You're the stock, you're the commodity that your corporation as the country benefits from. If a child doesn't have a birth certificate, then it cannot be traded. So you just not part of the system, and this is why they don't like you. You're a persona non grata. You're not welcome in the system because you need to be registered. You need to be accounted for.
And does that come with the maritime law? So when they used to do, you know, a few hundred years ago, when they would do the cargo ships before it comes off the bay, and the maritime law. So the port system is all set up in maritime law. It's not set up.
All corporates.
Yeah.
Maritime corporate law. It's just all BS.
Yeah.
It's all just a form of control and dehumanizing living, breathing human beings, creating a high authority above living, breathing human beings. We are the slaves that keep these corporates in. We're the lifeblood.
The women's birthing orders in the canal, that claim as the ship going
Yes.
into the dock and that kind of stuff. So
Yes.
I understand how they
Yes.
change that narrative of the story.
If you don't know any of this, in the Ubuntu book, I go into quite a bit of detail with all this language, the words that are used to enslave us, the birth, the certificate, all this stuff. It's just spectacular. So, just to finish here, so who are the shareholders of the corporation and how they appointed? What is the relationship of the people of South Africa to this corporation called the Republic of South Africa? It's a really important question. Because, we believe we live in a country, not a corporation. And is there an agreement between the people or the citizens of South Africa and the Republic of South Africa? If so, where are those agreements kept and when were they entered into? And this, incidentally, is why our countries have a census every few years. It's not because they need to know how many people there are to provide services, it's to know how much stock there is to trade. And this is now why it's become, you have to sign the census, you have to fill it in, otherwise you get arrested. When we had the census last time, they came around to our house and I said, no, I'm not going to sign it, I'm not interested. They said, then we're going to have you arrested. I went, what? He says, yes, if you don't sign it, we're going to bring the cops and we're going to arrest you. So I resisted for as long as I could, and eventually I signed it and I filled it in. And then, do the people of South Africa have any obligation to this corporation? And if so, do they have the right to renounce such obligation? Because I don't know that I'm a subject or related to some corporation that I didn't agree to. I mean, it's like saying, what, the BH Bulletin, or what it's called? BH Bulletin is now the authority and you have to subscribe to their laws. That's exactly the same thing. You ever agree to subscribe to their laws? Now suddenly you have to abide by some corporations' laws that you didn't even know exist. That's what they're doing to us. Since our Bill of Rights and our Constitution, as well as the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, strictly forbids any form of slavery or forced servitude, what right do the people who live in the land referred to as South Africa have to cut all their ties and any responsibility to this corporation that they didn't know even existed? And that, my friends, brings us to the whole issue of sovereignty, our sovereignty and our ability to renounce any obligation to this corporation that has imposed itself on the people. Now, I don't want to go down this road too far because one can get very quickly sucked into that and it'll take your whole life and you'll get involved. Oh yeah, I'm involved in the sovereign movement and sovereignty and Magna Carta and all this stuff. Unfortunately, it's all in the past and you're going to waste your time. This is what I'm proposing here today, is be aware of it, but don't get sucked into it. And this is the real advice that you'll probably get from anyone who spent the last 10 years doing it and got absolutely nowhere. Or some of them are sovereign and say, yeah, I'm sovereign. What does it mean? You still need a passport to go somewhere. And yeah, but I don't need to go anyway. Well, that's not freedom, is it? So, and then finally, what is the relationship between the corporation called the Republic of South Africa and the government of the Republic of South Africa? And it's amazing. Just one corporation controlling another, controlling another. When we were in the elections last year, at one stage they pulled us into a meeting and started giving us a pep talk. about when you go to Parliament, for those parties that win a seat in Parliament, and they start to prepare you for a life and a world of the Parliament, which is another corporation. And when you're a member of Parliament, you have special rights and privileges. They do not apply to the other subjects. And they start preparing you, and they start sweet talking you about you'll have all these privileges, and you'll have all this, you'll have access to this and that, and you can do this, and you can start seeing the people in that room already, these future politicians. You can start seeing the eyes getting all big. Oh wow, this is great. I'm going to have all these privileges that all the other dumb schmucks don't have. And already you're creating the separation from the people. It was spectacular. And then we get to the needs of the people, but let's take a break. Firstly, remind ourselves of the needs of the people. And so what do we need? Food, water, love, tables, chairs, clothes, maybe not clothes. Some people claim we don't need clothes. Knives, forks, maybe not. Some people eat with their hands. Do we need technology? We need gardens, homes, roofs, fans. I don't know. Anything, you can just come up with whatever we need. What's not on that list is money. We don't need money. Because that's exactly what it comes down to. Money does not make the world go around. People do. We make the world go around. And just, again, a reminder that money does nothing, people do everything. We grow the seeds, we grow the food, we develop the technology, we we make the clothes, we do everything. Money does nothing. It just gets in the way of us doing things all the time. Every step of the way, it's a hurdle, an obstacle, a problem. Oh, there's never enough money to do this or do that. And with all the money in the world, our governments are seemingly incapable of solving the problems that we have. And they have access to all the money that they can get. So money does nothing, and it's also not the love of money, as many people say. Oh, it's just the love of money. No, it's not just the love of money. It's the presence of money that creates all these problems. And the moment you remove money, everything changes. So the only plausible solution to all our problems, now we've covered all the things and the origins of money and how it's used and abused in the banks, how it's created, how it's just a tool of enslavement. There's only one logical conclusion that we can reach, and that is to remove the money. And you should be, you can't see so well. And that's your local fella. What's his name? Mm-hmm. Yeah. To get rid of the money. And it's amazing how liberating that idea is. But at the same time, it immediately poses some of the questions that already came up. And these are what I call the 13 most frequently asked questions. And these just 8 of the first questions. In my book, I deal with about 24. I expand on them. But essentially, if you break it down, they're just extrapolations of the 13 fundamental questions. And this is the most exciting news I can share with you. Over a 10-year period of proposing a world without money, hundreds of thousands of people around the world have repeatedly sent through 13 problems that they want to solve. And seemingly, if we can solve these 13 problems, because they keep coming up with the same questions, if we can solve these 13 problems, we can live in a utopian society. While in a world with money, how many problems do we have? Right? Millions of problems we face every day, and our governments face millions of problems, and things are not that simple. It's complicated. We can't just solve that. We got to first refer to this, and the law doesn't allow us to do that, and then this act needs to be revoked, or that. Just all these problems that we have everywhere we go. It's just bloody problems and hurdles. And this is with a world with money. We have millions of problems to solve. In a world without money, we have 13 problems to solve, and we can live in paradise. And just in there alone shows you the psychology behind this. And that, it took me a while to figure this out, just because the writing is so obviously on the wall, that in over 10 years of promoting a world without money, it's 13 recurring problems that people come up with. It's incredible. So just very quickly, who's going to shovel the crap in a world without money? That's often one of the first questions. Who wants to have a stab at that right now? Who thinks that you already have enough? Come on, you should have some of the answers. I'll just sit on my ass and do nothing. In a world without money, I'll just sit on my ass and do nothing, and people must bring me stuff.
No.
Really? It's not called that we're going to serve you. It's called contributionism. We all contribute towards the well-being of our community. So you can't just sit on your ass. You've got to do something. Oh, well, why should I do something? There's number 7. Why should I do something I don't like? Well, that's exactly the opposite. You're in this community because you choose to be in this community to do what you love to do. And that's your contribution to the community. Well, human nature is to be lazy. Really? I don't think so. That is a consequence of capitalism. Laziness, money, capitalism, that goes hand in hand. Human nature, as far as I'm concerned, is to create. Is to be creative and to do something that we love to do. We never stop creating if we're given the freedom and the chance to do what we want. You go out and do what you want to do, what you choose to do. Are you lazy? Are you lazy to go and practice your hobby? Oh, I'm too lazy to go and ride my horse today. It's like people that love horses can't wait to get up in the morning and go ride their bloody horses. To me, it's a nightmare, but to people that love horses, you know, that's the beautiful thing is that there are as many passions as there are people. No two people are the same. Every one of us is unique in what we really love to do and prefer to do. And that's what makes this thing so incredibly diverse and versatile in providing solutions to all our needs in our communities because of our infinite diversity. In the unity, we find our infinite diversity and the ability, just like the trillions of cells in our body, to do what we want to do for our community. And you'll see how perfectly it fits into the model of abundance. Our ability to create with beyond restriction. That provides the abundance within the cooperative structure. And that's what's so exciting. How are we going to pay for things? Well, we're not going to pay for things because there's no money. So that question is even completely out of place. In fact, when we start going through these 13 most frequently asked questions, right now some of them might still seem valid to you. But what actually happens as you start deconstructing it, each and every one of these questions is completely out of place. They don't even belong in a world without money. They have no reference, no place. Let's look at the third question now, which is my favorite one. I want 50 Ferraris and 20 mansions. Right. In a world without money. Oh, great. Everything is free. Because you see, we associate free with hoarding crap. Right? So if it's free, we'll go into a store and load our basket full of it so we can take it home because we hoard the stuff. Well, in a world without money where everything is available all the time to everyone because that's how it works, you're not going to hoard stuff. You don't live with the fear of not having something, so you don't feel the necessity to hoard it in case you reach a stage in your life where you don't have a job and you need those t-shirts that you got for free because you might be able to sell them or give them away as presents because you can't afford to buy a present or whatever goes through your mind when you hoard that crap. And that's what happens. So, first of all, I want 50 Ferraris and 20 mansions. That's a complete knee-jerk reaction to a capitalistic society where 50 Ferraris and 20 mansions are associated with lots of wealth and accumulated stuff. So let's first deconstruct this. And this is the way that we need to approach the answers, any answers to potential problems that you might see or hurdles in a world without money have to be answered from this perspective. In a world without money, will we drive the cars we drive today? The answer is no. Will we use the fossil fuels we use today?
No.
The answer is no. Will we use the form of electricity or energy we use today? The answer is no. Will we live in houses we live in today? The answer is no. Will we need roads to drive on? The answer is no. Will we wear the clothes we wear today? The answer is no. Because in a world without money, you're not going to go into a shop and take a t-shirt off the shelf that's created in some sweatshop in China so you can buy it off the shelf. Everything in a world without money will be tailor-made for you by people in your community whose job it is, whose passion it is to make beautiful clothes and garments for you specifically, who will have your size and all your dimensions on their computer, which is the best possible technology imaginable, that is upgradable and replaceable whenever it needs to be upgraded and replaced, which probably is going to happen, which is never going to be required, because once you get it, it's probably going to be the best quality that money can't buy. And you go to the tailor to get your clothes made for you, because being a tailor in your community is part of what we do for our communities. In a world without money, everything is custom made. In a world with money, we can't afford custom made things. Everything turns upside down. So when somebody says, well, if everything is free, that's a misnomer, because nothing is free. It's available to everyone all the time. We don't have money, so it's not free. It's available. We're not going to want 50 Ferraris. You can have your Ferrari, but everyone's going to laugh at you, because it's like, you know, having a steam locomotive on the road today. So it's really going to be stupid. Yes, you can drive a Ferrari, but do you really want to? It's really embarrassing. So while everyone is floating around in their levitational vehicles, or just transmutating or teleporting, and remember, all the stuff that I'm talking about is possible. Not just possible, it's been done before, and it will be done again. The moment you remove money from the system, you remove the hurdle to progress. So in a world without money, first of all, there's no crime. Did you want to?
Yeah, I did want to say something. So there's this thing called craving and aversion, which is something that the Buddha meditated on beneath the bodhi tree.
Yes.
And so what you're proposing is that people aren't going to want to crave these.
Not at all.
Desire is what, like,
No, I'm not proposing that at all.
Dissipate, like,
No.
like,
No, we're still going to crave stuff. But there's a solution for the craving. I'm not going to tell you what the solution is. I want you to come up with a solution when we're finished here.
what I'm saying is that just because Ferrari is ridiculous in this situation, does that mean that people aren't going to want Ferraris? Like,
No. They're still going to want Ferraris. But they will get them under different conditions. They'll get them in the way that we put together kit cars today. I'm just it might be completely different. Because we're not going to drive Ferraris. If they want a Ferrari, they can have it, but it's not going to function the way it functions today, because you're probably not going to find petrol to put in the Ferrari, right? So you're not going to be able to drive it. So you're going to have to drive it on some other technology that no longer exists. So what I'm saying is that the current structures we have today are going to be very different in a world without money. So your cravings for the things from a world with money are going to be more of a, I don't know what it's going to be like, but to me, I see it as a curiosity. And wow, do you remember we used to live in a world where money was controlling everything, and we had to drive these horrible things that used petrol and polluted the world and killed half the world. So it'll be more of a curiosity and an example of what we shouldn't do again. And where collectors will get together and build kit Ferrari cars because it's part of an interesting past, the way we build kit cars today, and possibly drive them on tracks that are created to drive kit cars on as a curiosity and the pastime. I don't know, I'm just suggesting this as a solution. It might be totally different.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I would imagine, and I'd really like to see that in a world like you're describing, that when people do have specific cravings, that there is someone who is an expert or has a really unique skill that loves helping people understand what's going on behind the craving, what's actually happening in their mental and emotional body, and actually overcoming that and working through that as a community and having the support to do that. And finding, I actually believe that there's people out there who love doing that. I'm definitely someone myself, and I know lots of people who like to do that. And I would imagine that that would be something we would have in a world like that. That's just what I can see.
Perfect.
Yeah, the other thing that happens is, obviously this goes hand in hand with higher consciousness. And the more you get out of the society that we're in today, which is really a survival mentality, and craving is part of the survival mentality in a large extent, to a large extent, and this is why these points here. So in a world without money, one of the first things that goes, it just virtually disappears, is crime. Because most of the crime committed today is all about the money. Think about all the crimes that go on. It's always about the money. Stealing this or deceiving this or corruption or extortion or hijacking someone or this, it's always about the money. Or kidnapping, or it's always about the money. Or control, to attain control, but money is always somehow connected to it. So in a world where money doesn't exist and everything is available, how can you corrupt somebody? You know, well, I'm going to give you $1 million if you do this for me. Well, what am I going to do with it? Make a fire? You know, it's like, what am I going to do with the money? I have everything I need. So it becomes.
Underlying that though, because the craving for money, there's a sensation associated with the craving. So it's the sensation for power, the sensation for pleasure, greed, all of these things are the sensations that underlie this yearning for money.
Yes. So it is the money that's the problem.
No, it's the sensations that are...
Well, it's the money in our system that creates a sensation for money. So if there's no money, then the sensation for money. Remember the...
Money's just, it's just a thing.
No, it's not just a thing.
Yes, it is.
It's not. It is the tool of control.
It's the tool of getting the other things that you want.
Yes. So if you've got everything you need, why would you want craving for money?
Bring status in a community environment, and that focus on status because of the political system and the
Yes.
media. You're better if you've got this
Yes.
status.
Yes.
And money really does give you. You've got the Ferrari.
Yeah.
You need what you need.
Exactly.
Status.
Exactly.
You don't need this.
So exactly. So in a world without money, your status comes from what you do for your community. The more you do for your community, the higher your status in the community. If there is such a thing called status, that doesn't even come into. You do it because you love to do it, and because you love to do it, your reward is in the recognition of your community for what it is that you do. It comes automatically and naturally from your community. They honor you, love you, and respect you for what it is that you do for the community. Whether you're a lifeguard, whether you're a pilot, whether you're a steam driver. But we're getting to the system and how it actually works. We're still getting there because at the moment we're still thinking about, we're still compartmentalizing our roles. Our roles are not compartmentalized. So we're actually jumping the gun a little bit here. It's important to recognize this, that again, the way we're looking at it, even the hooks that you're bringing into it are connected to the way we see life today and the way we were brought into this world. How we are taught about yearning and desiring things and so forth. We're a product of a system that we are born into. And it's going to take quite a bit to undo this programming. And this thing called yearning. You know, we were just talking over lunch. We keep talking about the good old days. It's like, it's always the good old days. It was always better in the past. So things are getting worse and worse. Instead of talking about the bad old days, and things are getting better and better all the time. And that's what we should just reprogram ourselves. Let's talk about the bad old days when we were enslaved, when we had to drive fossil fuel cars, when we had to go to school, when we had to do all this. Now we don't have to do that. We live lives of utopia, absolutely free, in a world that is completely free of abundance, where we are part of the laws, where we emulate the laws of nature, where we are abundant in everything we do. And there is no need for any hoarding. No crime, no envy, no gluttony, no greed, no hoarding, no hierarchy, and especially no hunger. And it's the hunger part that causes a lot of the problems in the world. When people are hungry and they have no food, they commit crimes. They break into a house, they break into a car to steal something, to sell it so they have money to buy food. It's this never-ending cycle of ridiculousness because of money. So, as you break this down, and again, it's something that takes a little while. Some people get it instantly, others take a little while to get into it, and there are some that just simply resist it. And they resist it not because, I don't know, they just resist it. I haven't figured out why they resist it, and I don't really want to figure out because that's just a waste of energy. Let's rather focus on those that get it and let's implement this new way. And those that resist it will follow because they just need a little bit of pampering. Quite frankly, sooner or later, like I've told you earlier, everyone has their trigger point, and those that resist it sooner or later will also find that trigger point, because they just resist it often because they just want to resist stuff. That's their nature right now in this system. Once they get out of the system, they realize that you don't have to resist anything. It just comes naturally to you.
I'd like to speak to what this young lady brought up. I'm with you most of the way, but I have a problem with just being money. Why I have a problem with that is that for me comes out of the thinking that is part of the problem that you speak to power relationships, and that money's a tool for power relationships. The type of thinking that has produced that, one of the myths is you can isolate cause and you can find one thing that you can tweak to solve the problem. That's actually not true. My area is complexity, science and systems, and causality is irreducible complex. And so I was stuck on that it's just about the money. We give things meaning, they don't have meaning within themselves, and we're attributing meaning to money. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm criticising you. I'm with you, my motivation is the same, but I view it differently. And so for me, we're spiritual beings in the human condition, and the struggle is the programming and the conditioning of the human condition. And I can't see a solution by engaging with the problem with similar strategies through the human condition. And so for me, I agree with you. It's about unhooking, it's about breaking programming, but to implement something as a solution, it has to come from people who have an investment in it, and there's processes that operate deeply within us, within nature. That's how our unconscious mind works, and when we unhook and drop into that space, it frees up very deep processing, and wisdom and insight starts to reveal itself. And so I hear you speaking to that in your own way. And so I'm with you mostly. I just have a problem that there's one thing that's going to solve it, because that comes out of thinking it's a problem from how I see it.
Thanks for bringing that up. And let's just look at what you said there. We can see it as one thing, or we can see it as an infinite number of things, because money is one thing, but it affects every aspect of our humanness. It affects every part of our lives. So in essence, it's many things. It's not just one thing. It's an infinite number of things. And by removing ourselves from that system, we're removing ourselves from the infinite number of things that affect every step of our way. You want to start a bakery, you can't get a loan. You want to buy a horse, you can't get... It affects an infinite number of things in our lives, from creativity to science to every aspect of what we want to do as creative human beings of a spiritual nature, right? Or spirits in the material world, as Sting said. So what'll happen? But let's just continue, because I think what happens here on, as we go into what do we do about this, we start to unhook from this, and because we can get stuck on an argument about one thing, and then we get stuck in or a debate about, okay, well, it's not quite this, and we try and define this and define that. Let's just realize that we need to get away from the money system, and the money system is the problem and the tool that was used to keep us in this system.
I'll hold that question.
Yeah.
I would like to say that it's about the conditional relationships in the way that money is used. And so if those conditional relationships are removed, then that changes.
Yes. Actually, what you're saying there is part of the introduction of the People's Bank, for example. There's a conditional relationship paradigm shift between what money is today and how it will become used. Just a simple flick of the switch, just saying, as of tomorrow, all the banks are no longer private banks, they become people's banks. And anyone can go and get a loan for a community project that they want to start. Not for a personal loan to buy a house or buy a car, but a community project, if it benefits your community. Because then that money becomes a flow into the rest of the community and benefits every part of that community. And then we need to talk about the whole concept of land ownership, because in a world without money, what happens to land ownership? And this becomes really important to the foundation of this philosophy, is that we cannot have land ownership in a world without money. And again, it becomes, how much land do you need? You know, why do farmers have thousands of hectares of land and they do nothing with it? It just lies there, while people can't find a home to live in, and they get evicted from their home when there are people with thousands of acres. So this becomes, the ancient philosophy was you can't own the world. And we need to go back to that to realize that, yes, you can't own the world. What happens when you die? So now somebody inherits it from you? And what goes down? You buy it because you got money, so you can afford to buy more than someone else. what happens in this new way of structuring our societies is that land is automatically available to the community for whatever they need to do. The needs for the community are provided for, and as much land as is necessary for that community to create abundance for itself. And then you start seeing how little land you really need to use to create abundance for that community. When you start to employ all the techniques and activities that we have, you realize that every community can provide so much with so little abuse and so little waste of land and natural resources. It boggles the mind. And again, it feeds us back into the laws of nature and how nature works. We become part of the abundance of the world around us. And this is what brings me to the plan of action, really. So, pick up on exactly the point that you raised, is that the plan of action to change this paradigm, and that it's a two-prong attack. And some people have had a go at us for saying, well, you've started a political party, now you've become just like them. And yeah, it's really not very true, because we're very different from any other political party. The only reason we started a political party is because we realized that no matter how many community projects you create and how many off-the-grid societies you create, the moment you become a threat to the establishment, they will send the men with guns and they will shut you down. And they've done this in the past and they'll do it again. And if you become a self-sustaining community, then you're not a threat to the system. You just look after yourself. You just become a greater me, me, me. It's a service to self. And there seem to be three systems in the universal, whatever you want to call it, community of beings, whatever the right expression is. And the three systems are service to self, which is what we are engaged in. That's where corporations rule, and the hierarchical system is created, the pyramid schemes and all that. Service to others, which is more like Mother Teresa kind of system, where you care for others all the time that you actually neglect yourself. And then, believe it or not, in this particular channeling that I read, they refer to it as contributionism. And there was, after I had started using that word, and I nearly fell off my chair when I read this channeling, and they refer to it as exactly what came out of this system that I've been proposing, contributionism system, where people contribute their natural given talents or their acquired skills for the benefit of everyone. So what it becomes is a one-to-many exchange. We spoke about earlier, it's not a barter or trade system, but everything I do is available to everyone all the time. So if I'm a music teacher, I'll teach everybody music. If I'm a horse groomer, my horses are available for everyone to use in my community. If I'm a tailor, I'll make clothes for everyone in the community. And I won't be the only tailor there. There'll be many tailors, because we no longer have factories that manufacture this en masse by small, medium, and large, right? Everything becomes tailor-made. Because why? Because we can. And we choose to do that. It may not be like that. I'm suggesting that it's going to be like that. Everything I'm sharing with you is a suggestion. Why? Because I don't have all the answers, and I don't have to have all the answers, because the answers are going to come from each and every community. The communities will govern themselves, and this is why we have to deconstruct the central government. We cannot have a central government ruling us, telling us what we can do, cannot do, what we can think or we cannot think from a centralized position. Communities need to have the autonomy to look after themselves and govern themselves for the best of every community. And that's what it comes down to. So we have a political plan of action where you implement the philosophy from a political front, and you have the community plan of action where you implement them from the grassroots up. Bottom up, top down. And somewhere along the line, these two shall meet. And when they meet, becomes the end of the current enslavement system. And this is why we got into politics, because we realized that we have to give this very simple idea and people that resonate with it an outcome, and not just a yearning for this to become. You have to give it an outcome on a political level. And this is why in South Africa, last year, as you know, we participated in the South African elections, and we went into the elections with about 1 million followers. That is remarkable. On this laptop right here, I can show you, I have 800,000 names and phone numbers of people that subscribe to Ubuntu. 800,000 people. Then we had another 200,000 members of the New Economics Rights Alliance and Ubuntu Party members. So about 1 million people that followed us into the elections. We ended up with less than 5,500 votes. So you clearly see that there's a problem here. And the whole entire voting system is completely and utterly rigged and corrupt. At one stage, during the election, we had one of the women in front of us, very well-dressed African woman, turn around and she said, "Hey, Ubuntu, I was an observer at the count for votes cast outside of South Africa, the foreign votes." And everyone was surprised because the Ubuntu Party got the largest number of votes from foreign voters. More than the ANC, more than the DA. I was stunned. I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yeah." It was a big shock to everyone. And this comes from a complete stranger to me. So I thought, wow, we thought this is amazing. And there were 18,000 votes cast outside of South Africa. So we expected at least 5,000 votes to come to the Ubuntu Party from the foreign votes. Well, when they announced the total of foreign votes, 18,500 or something, it took another 3 days before they released the actual results. Because I can imagine, if that is true, what she told us, the horror and shock that hit the IEC, the Independent Electoral Commission, who clearly get the instructions from the Reserve Bank, right? And the instructions were, the Ubuntu Party is not going to get a sniff of Parliament, because they knew what our motto was, and our motto was, shut down the Reserve Bank as number one, and prosecute its directors. This is just not going to happen in the election. So when after 3 days the results came out, guess how many votes they gave us on that screen? Oh, you can't see that behind me. There's that huge giant blue screen with all the parties, and as the votes come in, the numbers appear. So on the foreign votes, when it finally came after 3 days, out of 18,500 votes, where we got the most number of votes, how many votes do you think were allocated to the Ubuntu Party?
100. 100.
28. I'm not kidding you. When we saw this, we just went, okay, well, you know, I see what's going on here. And that's when we realized we're going to have to shift our entire focus. And we realized that we were guided to use this as a platform for visibility, credibility that we're real, we're not just hot air, that we actually participate in the elections. And we have a real clear manifesto and a plan of action. And now it's all about the local municipal elections in 2016. That changes the ball game completely. And I'll get into that as part of the plan of action. So a year later, on the 7th of May, the Ubuntu Party participated in the UK elections with exactly the same manifesto, where Paul Toussaint, the chap on the left, registered the party in the UK, and then he stood in Stoke-on-Trent, and then Mark Slay stood in Sutton Coldfield. And these two guys stood, and they were really upset and really deeply disappointed because each one of them got a few hundred votes, which I think is a great achievement, to get a few hundred votes out of a completely unknown party in your own constituency. And they were really disappointed. They thought they were going to get in. And so I said to them that, you know, well done, they created history. It's the first time in history that any political party has participated with the same manifesto in 2 different countries. And this can never ever be undone. It's now happened. And it's probably going to happen in Canada next year. Many people have put up their hands and said, okay, yeah, I'll register, but no one's done it yet. So sooner or later, someone's going to get around and do it.
A year ago when you were here, that's when I started with it all, and I got in contact with probably 6 others around Australia, and we're moving forward to register Ubuntu, but I suppose when it's been a seed of consciousness since then, we've started to look into the background, I suppose, of all the law in Australia, and the whole system's a mess. But what we found out, well, a lot of the truth movements, who would probably get on our side if we did an Ubuntu thing, are pointing that the system is treasonous as it is. So that's why we've sort of withheld registering anything and getting anything off the ground. Because a lot of these movements are pushing to restore the parliament that we should have, because we don't have a government. We've got a corporate government pretending to be, same as probably what it is.
Everywhere in the world, yeah. So this is why, let's get to this strategy, because I think you'll realize that how the simplicity of the strategy is using the system to outsmart the system, really. And unfortunately, this is what it comes down to. We have to use the money to free ourselves of the money. So it does come back to your thinking and your, you know, we can't just go, oh, we're going to give up the money. It's not going to happen. It's a process. It's a step-by-step process. We're going to wean ourselves off of the system until we realize that we don't need it. And as we get rid of the money, our consciousness grows until we realize that we actually don't need it, and that it is an evolutionary consciousness evolutionary process. And you can't just give it up and force people to say, oh, you're not allowed to use money. That's not going to work. It's just another dictatorship. But you show people by example how we don't need it, and how through the abundance that we create, it becomes a laughable commodity to have, that it actually just gets in the way of everything. So what we do is, at the moment on the national elections platform, we propose a People's Bank, which I've spoken about in length already, and on the local municipal elections, which is happening next year, 2016, different kettle of fish altogether. We propose community projects, which are imposed by the municipality and activated by the municipality, a wide variety of community projects, and free electricity. And the free electricity is the foundation to unite the people. It is the tool that actually helps us to unite the people with the promise of free electricity. Now, free electricity, I don't have to go into this, and you'll know that there are many devices, many so-called free energy devices that will come out of the woodwork the moment you open your doors as a political power to say we invite the inventors in. As a grassroots movement, that's not going to happen. They're too afraid to come out of the woodwork. But the moment it's an invitation from a political front, everything changes.
I'd like to add on to what Adam actually says. Our government structure here in Australia is the most corrupt government to the point where it's actually acting as an illegal government structure. Queen Elizabeth knows about this. She was well aware. There is actually a website you can get into. It's called basicfraud.com. You can actually see all about what the government is and how it actually reacts. It hates that website because it actually exposes everything as to who they are and what they've been doing. They've been trying to shut down that website, but they can't because it's actually based overseas.
In Russia.
Probably in Russia, most likely. So you can actually see what's going on. They're the world, the other countries, governments of the world know about them, and are actually manipulating them. They know it.
But now every country has got the same problem. So what I'm suggesting here is that we know this. Now, either we can go and try and fight that fight and spend the rest of our lives trying to show that they're corrupt, that they're evil, or we actually start standing together and create a new alternative. I'm suggesting just ignore them. Forget about it. But use the system they've created to beat them. And that's what I'm suggesting here. We're using the money system to beat them. We're using the political system to beat them. And actually, it's like the worst kind of punishment they can get. Because the own enslavement system they've created is actually going to turn upon themselves. And that's what's happening here so quickly. And hopefully you'll see within the next few minutes how incredible and simple this is. And the local government elections, the local municipal elections, are actually the tool. And it's only after the national elections happened last year, when we realized how corrupt it is, that I started realizing, oh, wait a minute. The real opportunity is in the local elections, the virus injected into the beast, okay? The tiny little virus. We're not going to win it from the head. We can't chop down the head. The beast is too big. But we can inject the virus into the beast, and the way we do that is through a little town somewhere. The smallest little town, the minutest little municipality. They carry as much weight in the legal structure and the government corporate structure as the largest municipality. And this is the brilliance of the system. And it took me a while. So I'm not going to go through. Smallest towns can be the first domino effect. This is the last line here, since you can't read it that well. And that's our plan, people. In South Africa, we have got the local elections next year. Everything is building up to it now. The Ubuntu party has got more than 300 candidates spread around South Africa. By the time we get back, we'll probably have 1,000 candidates. It is growing exponentially. I can't support all of them because it needs money and funding. So they might have to support themselves. But at this stage, it looks like we're starting to get some conscious banking money in, believe it or not. There are conscious bankers out there that are also waking up, and suddenly they're going, hold on, my life is, I'm miserable. All I spend doing all my life is worrying about money, how to make money for other corporates. Why don't I use my talents to put to good use so we can use the money to rid the world of the money itself? And that's what's starting to happen. We haven't got it yet, but we got promises of getting it. So let's see how it unfolds. So the plan of action is small towns and municipalities. Now, I'm going to get to that a little bit later. But in the national election, sorry, somebody had their hand up somewhere?
Oh yes, it might be up to in terms of using their weapons against them. The little experiment I do, because the frustrating thing to me about the latest system is how it separates us all out geographically. The people I live next door to, like, that guy drives 50 k's that way to work, and that person drives that way. And so my head's on lately been thinking, I really want to just integrate immediately where I am with these people that are zipping off at 7 and coming back. Then the council build a new park next to us, and yeah, that's just serving the function. I can see it's working for more people than just me. Now there's a gathering spot. There's people. It's just a simple thing, but it's bringing back life into an immediate local community where the person who live next to them can see, say hello to them as well.
It's a great equalizer. Today we are afraid to talk to our neighbors. Remember that today we live under so much fear. It's just fear of everything, right? Fear of death, fear of cancer, fear of losing your job, fear of being arrested, fear of divorce, fear of everything. Everything in our lives is based on fear. Well, that's an exaggeration, but our lives are consumed by fear, fearing everything. Fear not sending your child to school. What are the repercussions if you don't send your child to school? It's a fear mentality, right? So I don't know if those of you that don't know, what the manifesto was last year. We had a 7-point manifesto that we implement in all the other Ubuntu parties, and that is, we believe that our country belongs to its people. We know that the country belongs to its people. Let's actually change that. We don't believe. We know. And that the mineral wealth and the energy creation belongs to its people, that the government is appointed as the servant of the people, by the people, to serve the needs of the people on every level, on our human endeavor. And based on these simple principles, we plan to do the following. Restructure the entire banking system to serve the people and not enslave the people, create a people's bank that creates money for the people, by the people, tax-free and interest-free, creating 100% employment and stop the financial enslavement of our people, and then let our scientists and inventors deliver a renewable source of free energy for every South African. In this case, it would be every Australian. Support our traditional healers and researchers and scientists in finding alternative cures for all disease and prevent the drug cartels from hiding such cures from the people. To support the farmers on every level to escape the grips of Monsanto and grow organic food and plant gardens across the nation to ensure that no Australian ever goes hungry again. And decentralize the government so that people can govern themselves in their own communities, taking care of their own needs immediately, supported by the new People's Bank, because remember, that's the job of the People's Bank, to create abundance in those towns and communities, from the smallest to the largest. And that's why that first change of the People's Bank is such a critical thing, is to lift the lid off that pressure cooker that takes the stress and the pressure of the people instantly. And if you know that you don't have to live where you live, or you can move to a small town close to your parents or close to your loved ones, and you'll always have something to do. And have something to do in the choice of what you want to do. So if you want to run an art school, you'll set up an art school, because the money will be available to set up an art school, because that's the job of the People's Bank. And that changes everything in the way we think today. Today, most of us live in places that we necessarily don't choose to. Socio-economic conditions dictate where we live, because you just got fired from a job in Brisbane and you had to move to Sydney because you were offered a job there. Did you want to live there? No, not really, but you had to move there because you got a job. And this is what dictates our lives. So, and then restructure the judiciary and the legal system to be written by the people, for the people, unlike the unjust legal system we face in our courts today. which holds the rights of corporations above those of living, breathing human beings. So this is a 7-point manifesto that we devised for the Ubuntu Party. And out of this, you can imagine all the other good things come. This is really a basic platform to implement such a philosophy. So in 2016, our plan of action is local municipal elections, which is slightly different. And that is, our plan of action is very simply to win at least one municipality, just one tiny municipality. That's all. What is the result of that? Now people say, well, what good is that going to do? This is what good it's going to do. The moment we win a little municipality and implement what we've discussed here so far, and a lot more that we haven't even come to yet, the moment we implement this communal structure philosophy and start creating abundance, it is impossible for a capitalistic model to survive anywhere within the proximity, and you'll understand why very shortly. It's not possible, because contributionism devours capitalism wherever it finds it, because of its principles of creating and sharing abundance. What that does creates a domino effect. And if we win it in one tiny little municipality, there'll be 100 towns around Australia that'll go, wow, if they can do it, we can do it. And suddenly they take their guidance and inspiration and motivation from one tiny little town. And that'll happen in the USA, in Canada, in England, all over the world, not just South Africa. And it's just this sudden domino effect that I cannot predict how it's going to unfold and how it's going to play, but I have an idea, because I've traveled all over the world and I've spoken to many people like you and many groups, and the need and the desire for this freedom is everywhere. So it's just going to be this explosion of emotions and people realizing that they can do it, and it's that moment that you start seeing people really working together to achieve this, because it's been done in one place. And if people think, oh, it's just one little town somewhere, it's not. It's actually a global phenomenon that'll happen. So we've decided, and this whole thing is based on cooperation and collaboration, right? And I'm going to go into the practical implementation just after I show you these, which you can't really see very well. But we had our new logos designed and our banners designed, which arrived just before I left South Africa. So we're ready to start implementing this. And our plan of action is we're looking to find the 12 smallest towns in South Africa, the 12 smallest municipalities. Why? It's a lot easier to reach 20,000 people than 10 million people. And within 2 weeks of campaigning, everyone in a small town will know who we are. And everyone will resonate with what we're talking about. And why do I say this? Because I've seen it happen already. In our little town called Watervalboven, which has about 5,000 people in it, collectively, with less than 3,000 registered voters, we're currently sitting with 3,500 signed petitions. We have more signed petitions than there are registered voters. Now this opens up a whole new approach to how we can approach this political dilemma. Just 3 weeks ago, in a town called Eartheart, which is where the ostrich barons came from in the 20s in South Africa, the ostrich millionaires. Eartheart was the ostrich capital and the feather capital of the world. The DA ousted the ANC ruling party through a vote of no confidence. Very simple way that you can get rid of the ruling party. How do you get rid of the ruling party? With petitions. If you have 3,500 petitions in a town of 2,500 registered voters, we take that to the court, and the petitions clearly say, these are the 24 community projects we want to implement. We call on the municipality and the mayor to help us implement this, and the mayor and the municipality may not stand in our way to do this, and they have to support the community in every possible way as a municipality to initiate these projects. If they haven't done so, they've gone against the will of the people. And this is what we can take to court and actually overturn and implement an Ubuntu municipality, even as it is right now. But I'd rather do it through the vote, because it's far more exciting than through a legal process, because it'll be so nice to kick their ass at the election. And the interesting thing about this, coming to you now, the interesting thing about these small elections in the small towns, you don't have the central voting thing. They count the votes in each little voting station. And because we have so much support in our town already, lots of people wearing this t-shirt all over the place, we have to print more, because we give them away for free, we don't sell them. And So at this stage, we I think there are 4 voting stations in our town. So we can have 10 people at every voting station as observers. So no cheating is going to happen anyway. No hiding of counts and votes. So the outcome of this local election is going to be far more realistic than a national election where what they count and what they read out are 2 different things. And this is the beauty of the system. One tiny little town and community can change everything.
We've got a great example here in West Australia. The guy was made out to be pretty crazy by the media, Hutt River Province.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And he declared his land a sovereign land, but what he's done is implied consent to the corporate government, basically treating them as if they are the government, but they can't apply because they're community treason. So he's used the system against him in a sense by going on colonial law.
Yeah.
And 75 kilometres by 75 kilometres he's got his own passports, he's got his own currency, he's got his own visas.
Great.
It's about 500
What's it called? Hutt River Province.
It's actually nothing happens there though. It's all by himself. He does nothing. It's all run down.
Prince Leonard.
Nothing
Yeah.
really happens.
So now the interesting thing about this,
Maybe
yeah.
another way of moving forward.
Well, I've met a lot of people like this. There's a Prince of England, there's a Prince of Germany that I met, and all this. But again, it's just like this. In South Africa, we have the Republic of Good Hope, which my friend Brendan Nash started, and there in Cape Town, there are more than 600, or close to 1,000 people now that drive Republic of Good Hope number plates, driving with their Republic of Good Hope driver's licenses, and they stop by the cops and they never harass them. They always just let them go. So it's already filtered into the traffic cops that don't harass these guys. It's just going to cause trouble for us. It'll expose us. It's an interesting thing. But unfortunately, the passports, they're not going to allow you to travel anywhere on the passport. Not because they don't want to, but because not on the system. Brendan tried to travel on his Republic of Good Hope passport, and he went to the airport and they took the passport, and they didn't use it because they couldn't find it on the system. So if it was on the system, they would have allowed it. So find a way to get it on the system, and then we overcome the problem. But
there's a few cases where there's some countries which, I can't even pronounce it, in the middle of somewhere in Asia, I think they've had trouble with these passports, but apparently they work in a few places. But the interesting thing about it is more in depth with the law system that you go. Australia's passports aren't recognised in international law, which goes a step further, and I suppose that's the whole deception of whether we're a colony or a nation.
So once again, the point I'm trying to make is we can spend the next 10 years trying to fight that and trying to prove that they should accept our passports, or just go to the voting station in the next year election and vote one little town in and win the battle, and create a domino effect, which then puts us in power. Because once you're elected as the mayor, everything changes. If I start implementing all this stuff and I've got the total support of the people in my community, you'll never get voted out again. Right? That's the beautiful thing about this, is once we're in pretty much for good, because no one's going to vote us out. Once we start implementing this abundance in our communities. So let's talk about how we're going to implement this abundance and how this is going to work.
Yeah, the other option, people, is to create another state.
Yeah.
The Constitution says you can. Chop WA in half. All move there.
You have to consult with the first people on the Aboriginal report about that. Primarily accept that.
Part of this.
There's another way of thinking of government out in this country is by supporting the Aboriginal people.
Yes.
Because they actually have been cheated.
Of course.
They're clearly cheated.
In South Africa, it's the Bushmen that have been cheated completely. I mean, they're the most disenfranchised people in the world, just like the Aboriginal people.
It's one way of kicking it out.
Again, if you use the political system, you probably speed the process up. Because if you think that it's only us in this room that are interested in this solution, last night, I don't know if you were there, but nobody put their hand up to say they're happy with the system. And this happens all over the world. When I was in Germany, 3,000 Germans in a hall, not one person put their hand up to say they're happy with the government and with the system. Not one person is happy. There's 100% dissatisfaction what's going on in the world. So what are we doing about it?
But they feel locked in the system.
They feel locked in the system. So hopefully, by exploring this idea, and it can go under any name. It doesn't have to be called Ubuntu. It's a philosophy. It's a simple system that allows us to step out of our imprisoned minds into a new way of thinking.
Some of the concepts of New Earth Nation, and if anyone knows New Earth Nation, when they talk about micro, macro communities,
Yeah.
and treating them and sovereignty,
Okay, so now you can see very little there, so I'll read it out to you here. So our small towns and municipalities campaign is first of all signing a petition. So we start out by signing this petition. The petition consists of 24 community projects. You can make up your own bloody community projects, what is most needed in your community. And make sure, have a look on our website, you see how it's structured. Use the same thing if you need to, but it pretty much calls on the mayor and the municipality that they have to support the will of the people. Support these community projects, and they may not stand in the way of achieving this. So if they stand or obstruct you in any way, that means they're going against the will of the people. And that gives you the leverage when you take this to court. And I believe that this is how we can win. Even if you lose at the elections, if it's crooked and rigged, you can then apply this system to overthrow the party that is in power, as happened in the town of Oudtshoorn, as I said. And then the list of community projects, and then finally what you may have seen on those posters that we talk about free electricity. Now, the 12 towns that we're looking for in South Africa, or the 12 municipalities, we're looking for specifically with towns that are near rivers or on rivers. And the reason I say this, because although we know that we have free electricity devices or alternative energy sources, some people just don't buy that. They just can't understand it. It's a lot easier to explain to people that we'll use hydro turbine technology to generate electricity. That's easy for people to understand. So the strategy is to say we're going to put it in rivers, we're going to create energy out of a river. If there's flowing water, it means there's flowing current. And we have our own electricity. We put the devices in, the electricity belongs to us. And what's happened in South Africa now, I don't know what's happened here. Eskom, our electricity provider, has created a precedent where they've offered companies and big organizations, if they create their own electricity, they can put the excess back into the system and they'll pay them for it. So they've just created a precedent where a town can do it as well and expect to be paid for it. So I'm envisaging 1,000 little small towns generating their own electricity, putting it back into the Eskom grid, and then hitting Eskom with a bill, and Eskom resisting, and then suing them. And sooner or later, they can't fight 1,000 battles, even as big as they are. Sooner or later, there'll be a legal precedent against them, and that creates I don't know. You see where I'm going with this? I'm just trying to show you that you can use the system to beat them. And if you're smart enough and you don't have any fear, but then you have to lose the fear. And most of us still have that fear. We don't want to go there. Well, I'm going to go there. And that's really what I constantly throw out the bait. And they're not taking the bait. It's bizarre. So, if they don't take the bait, when we sue them for not paying us for the electricity that we put in, I'm now jumping the gun. If they don't take the bait, it's a default judgment. Thank you very much. So, it's an interesting situation that could unfold out of this. I am jumping the gun, okay, but it's exciting every now and then to imagine what could happen. Wow. Talk about the spotlight. So, community projects, I'm not going to... So, the whole thing about the community project, so in our system, in our proposal, we have the 24 community projects, and how does this work? So, we win the election. We implement our own electricity supply. Are we going to ask permission to do that? No. We unplug the electricity supply guys and we put ourselves in. In Australia, it might work differently. In Africa, once the people have smelled free electricity, do you think the government's ever going to force them to go off that? Not going to happen. Okay, they're going to go and burn down the mayor's house, or they're going to go and stone the cars, or whatever, but the people will not be denied free electricity once they've tasted it. And this is the beauty of it. Put the power back in the hands of the people. Give them the free electricity, but give it on the platform of understanding that this is a collaborative structure. In return for the free electricity, everybody must contribute 3 hours a week towards one of the community projects. That's the negotiation that needs to happen. And so far, everyone in our community that we've engaged on this is very clear and very happy with this. Nobody feels exploited. Oh, you're forcing me to work for 3 hours a week. What's interesting about this as well is that it is a transitional stage, transitional phase. You don't have to give up your job. You don't have to move anywhere. You can carry on doing what you're doing, living where you are, doing what you're doing, and give up 3 hours a week for this free electricity. Everybody gets free electricity, uncapped. It's our electricity. It comes out of the river. No one's going to mess with it and manipulate it.
You come across character types that fucking I just want to pay for it.
Yes, and that's great. Because what happens, and there'll always be people like that, they're going to sit on the fence and say, well, it's fine, I'll see how this goes. I don't want free electricity because I want to work for 3 hours a week and something. So what happens is this. So we have these 24 community projects that we propose, and probably more. First of all, understand what we've just done. We have 5,000 people, let's say 3,000 able working people, 3 hours a week, that's 9,000 hours a week. We've just created a very powerful labor force out of our simple little town that at the moment is deeply divided. There's 80% unemployment. We've just turned this into a very powerful labor force that no corporation, no government, no private enterprise could ever compete with. And all 24 projects are well taken care of, with people that are not only contributing, but creating abundance. At the same time, what happens is that the plan is we create 3 times as much as what we need. Why? Because we can. So it's not just, hey, let's grow some food over there, brew. It's not that, right? It's a very planned and structured set of events here that we plan. How much maize do we need to feed 5,000 people? And we grow 3 times as much. How many potatoes do we need? We grow 3 times as much. How many computers do we need? Or whatever it is. How many horses do we need? How many loaves of bread do we need? How many fish do we need? Because in our community projects, we've got recycling, we've got a fish farm, we've got a bakery, a dairy, cheese, milk, butter, wood factory, metal factory, and a bunch of other stuff, mushroom growing, etc., etc. So, in all these things, just our fish farm alone can breed 1 million fish a month. It's standing vacant right now. It belongs to the municipality, so it means it belongs to the people. So, fix the fish farm up and start, get a master fish breeder in there that can actually breed the fish. 1 million fish a month. That little fish farm can bring 10 million rand a month into our little small town. That's a huge amount of money for our community. So the plan is this. Every community project creates 3 times as much as what it needs. And this is where the abundance factor comes in. We're not just creating a self-sustained community. Because we're doing it together, we're doing it for free, we can create 3 times as much as what we need. Because to create 3 times as much takes a little bit more effort than creating as much as what we need. Right? Yeah, you get that, right? It's not that much more effort. Now, once we've consumed the 1/3 for ourselves, we've got 2/3 to sell to the outside world. And yes, I'm using the word sell, because we are still living in a world with money. We still need money to free ourselves off the money. So in the interim, first thing that happens is I become mayor, and the first thing we do as the municipality, we tell the people to please appoint a council of elders. And this is where we get back to the ancient kind of philosophy. Because it's got to come from the people. And it's at this moment that I hand over as the mayor the decision-making powers to a council of elders of the community that's appointed by the people for the people, the most trusted people in the community. And the suggestion is that it's 13 people. 1 spokesperson, 12 around 1. Most trusted people in the community, and they are the spokesperson or the spokesbody for that community that make the decisions as to what's best for that community and what should take precedent over others while we still are in a money-driven society. The what system?
Our current system, and the new system. I just wanted to know that if we were to create this new system, we need to remember our fellow citizens and remember that we have to allow them not to be in this slavery system as
Yes.
So that's,
Yes.
yeah.
And I know what you're referring to. So let's just get back to,
Yeah.
you're talking about the cows and the dairies and all
I'm
that.
talking
Yes.
about the
So
practical
again, this thing again, this is not. We're not going to go from zero to hero, right? Overnight. It's an aspect of rise of consciousness.
Yes, I was just making a point to
Absolutely.
to remind the whole of
Yes.
if all species like that.
Yes. And this is why, what you'll find, the more you immerse yourself in this, the more you realize there is no greener party than the Ubuntu system. There is no more animal-friendly movement than the Ubuntu system because it just automatically happens. It allows that to come out of it.
Yeah.
All the
I
other.
also actually wanted to tell you a story that there is a guy in Australia that okay. There was a guy in Australia that used to be the CEO, bank manager of the Unlike Bank, I think it was Citibank, and he became a philanthropist, dropped everything, became a philanthropist for advocacy, gave a kindness trust, and that's what he does now. Brings money.
Right.
So I'm just saying that's one point of view.
So, yeah.
His name's Philip Warner.
Philip who?
Philip Warner.
Philip Woolen.
He does stuff all around the world too. But
Okay.
he actually came back to Australia.
Conscious bankers. Yeah, the word conscious banker is like and yes, they're out there, they are out there, definitely. And I, well, you know how many bankers have committed suicide over the last several years, right? Senior bankers. It's more than 1,000 now. So I wonder what that is all about. I suspect that a lot of these bankers are waking up and they suddenly go, I can't do this anymore. And they start making too many noises around the office and next thing they jump out of their window. Really?
At the Westpac Bank, I won't say which one, but I had a conversation with the bank manager, and after we had the conversation, he said, I feel like the devil sometimes.
Yeah.
The bank manager of the Westpac Bank in Perth.
Yeah.
It was like, it was in the bank, it wasn't outside of the bank room. And he said it and he meant it. And he walked away, and he looked really, felt it in his heart.
So let's get back to these community projects and see how this gives us abundance. So just imagine 24 community projects, for want of a better number. And each one of these projects brings several million a month into your community. I mean, this is insane amount of money. Because right now, our town gets about 3 million rand a month from government. That we don't see a cent of that, it goes into the pockets of the politicians. That's why our town is completely, it's just destroyed. So suddenly, not only get 3 million rand a month that gets appropriated or allocated where it should be, towards sporting facilities, towards fixing the roads and so forth, but actually also towards starting some of the community projects. You don't need a lot of money to start them, you just need the sustainability. Every community project is not just a haphazard thrown together of some people. You need an expert master craftsman, master artisan in that project, supported by a community, a project manager that manages it like a business, but for the community. So it's done very strategically. It's done planned very accurately to deliver an outcome desired and needed by the community. It's not just a bunch of hippies getting together and, hey, let's grow some food. It is very strategic. So if people say, oh, this is a lawless society, who's going to make the rules? Well, we've already, and that's one of the frequently asked questions, we've already answered that, haven't we? The Council of Elders is going to be the decision-making body for the community, on behalf of the community. Once I've handed it over to the Council of Elders as the mayor, I've basically surrendered all control over that town. I can no longer have any influence over that town unless the Council of Elders asks me to guide them or inspire them or whatever it is. Because they've now taken control of their own community. And that shows you that this is not a dictatorship. It gives the power straight to the people. Because that's often a concern. So who's going to make the rules? And I used to joke and say, I am. People didn't get that as a joke. So I have to be very clear on this. the community makes its own set of rules and laws and guidelines. It's more guidelines, because ultimately we go back to the fundamental laws of nature, or the common law principles. Do not kill, do not steal, conduct yourself honorably in everything you do. And from that come all the other laws and guidelines for our communities. Okay, 3 hours a week. Suddenly our community becomes a powerful labor force. In return for your free electricity, 3 hours a week. We create abundance. We sell the 2/3 outside. And because we create that for almost for free, and I'll explain why sometimes it's actually for free, we can sell it for a fraction of the cost that any other factory or slave labor Chinese factory can make it. We can sell it cheaper than Walmart, we can sell it cheaper than any store in Australia, because we do it collectively as a community for free. Therefore, we'll sell our stuff quicker than anybody else. And all the neighboring towns are going to come to us to buy their bread and milk and cheese or whatever the hell they want to buy from us, whatever it is that we produce. And that brings never-ending abundance to our community. Everything that comes in goes into the community bank account, because that's what we have to do to start off with, so that nobody can run off with the money, as one would expect in a money-driven society, so that that money is then applied in upgrading and improving and starting more community projects. And this just brings more wealth and more wealth into the community, so that we get to the point, we get to the FU money factor. There is so much money in the community that we can do anything. Let's build a new hospital. Okay, it sounds like a good idea. Build a new hospital, because we've got the money. And we've got the know-how, we've got the skills. And where do the skills come from? Not just from our own community. They come from all over the world. Because suddenly people all over the world are attracted, all over our country are attracted to our community. And this brings out the other important thing. And that is, how do we handle existing factories and existing businesses in our towns? Because we're going to become a threat to existing factories. And this is where you start just realizing the incredible inclusivity of this simple system. I've spoken to many factory owners, many farmers' unions, many individual farmers, and every single time we have this discussion, the answer is, when can we start? There's no even debate, no negotiation, nothing. It's, when can we start? They want to become part of the system. I'm going to explain to you why they say when can we start, because this is the inclusivity. So, and this works on all levels of this expanding the community projects. Because ultimately everything we do, everything every one of us does, will sooner or later become part of the community projects. Whether you're a painter, and I'm painting, okay, let's go back a little bit. 3 hours a week. 3 hours a week. The rest of the time is yours, people. Okay, now because you contribute 3 hours a week, everything that we manufacture in our community projects, food, produce, whatever, you have access to because you contributed your 3 hours a week. So you get it for free. So you're not using money. You don't need money to get it. You get it for free because we create, remember, 1/3 for us and 2/3 for outside. The electricity is free, right? You live for free. So those that don't want to pay the electricity will still be charged electricity. But then the community can decide, you're such an asshole for not wanting to participate, we're going to punish you. And we're going to hike the price of the electricity to 3 times what it is now. I don't know, I'm just using a weird, but it's possible. But just think about this. How long do you think the people that sit on the fence will last when all their friends are getting free everything, they don't pay electricity, and suddenly everything, and they're still paying for everything, they have to go to the shops and buy everything that everyone is getting for free, they're not going to last for long. They're going to join very quickly and contribute their 3 hours a week.
There's no tax.
There's no tax. Yeah, exactly.
What about things campers, let's say water? If everybody needs water, how will we get the
Okay, so very good question, thank you. Every community project needs something. The bakery needs flour. So the creation of flour becomes another community project, right? The creation of, bicycles. We need bicycles. So, well, water is something that we obviously need, but remember that there's more water on Earth than anything else. It's the most abundant element on Earth, so that the idea of water scarcity is just a fear factor. Let's remember that. So don't buy into the scarcity of water fear-mongering thing, because there's more water than anything else. Water and silica, the two most abundant elements on Earth. So we should have all the crystals in the world we need, and all the crystallized and beautiful, spiritually impregnated water and abundance of water. And anyone that lives anywhere near the coastline, I mean, I'm not saying desalinated water is the answer, but if you know how to do it with frequency, then it becomes a very interesting prospect. And there are people that know how to do that, how to separate the salt from the water without creating a forced reaction. So now we have, I got sidetracked. Where were we? We were about the businesses. Yes, the businesses. So what happens is, we have a window factory, for example. A window factory which we have in our little town. So we're going to create a wood factory that'll probably make windows and doors and building materials that we need for our houses, but they'll be making it from new materials as well, so it adds a whole other interesting component to it, right? Because our scientists in the laboratories that we're going to set up for research are going to be blending hemp and all kinds of other stuff and creating new materials that we don't have today because it's too expensive. But we're going to have it because we create it, and our scientists are so brilliant, they're going to make it, and it's going to be very easy to make it. And that's how simple these things are, actually. It's just money gets in the way. So our window factory, we go to the window factory and say, listen, this community project, and the guy's very arrogant and obstructional, and he says, well, what's in it for me? Why should I join your community projects? We say, well, this is in it for you. What's in it for you? Free electricity, no rent, free labor because you're part of the community project, so people come to work in your factory because it's now a community project, free material because we'll be creating the wood ourselves, free components because we'll be providing the glue and the screws and whatever we need because our scientists will be making it. So your wood factory that you're now paying a fortune for the wood and the components, you're going to get all that for free plus free labor. You have zero cost. And in return, you retain 1/3 of what we produce. Are you in or are you out? This is why everybody says, when can we start? It's not even a debate. And that's how simple it is. And that applies to the farmers and the growing of food. Obviously, the way we're going to grow food is going to change. So let's just talk about basic starting point. All the farmers around our area have already committed to work with us. They made their land available. We don't even have to negotiate it anymore. We just have to start this process. Same thing with farmers. Make your land available. All you have to provide is your implements and your expertise. Tell the people what to do, when to do it. We provide the labor force because you're part of the community project. We provide the seeds. We provide the petrol or the diesel for the implements. We provide the servicing of the implements because that's people in our community know how to do that. In return, you retain 1/3 of the crops and 2/3 goes to the community. That's why the farmers say, when can we start? And even the arrogant wine farmers in South Africa said, when can we start? It's amazing. So now we've created this inclusive system where everybody wants to be part of it. And we're just creating this abundance. Suddenly, factories that are outside of our town are going, well, I want to move my factory to that town. And you see what starts to happen. You become a magnet, not just for manufacturing, which is a terrible word, but for creativity, for creating abundance in that tiny little town that could become like a new magnet and a new mecca for creating and manufacturing abundance on every level. Arts, culture, technology, healthcare, cure for all disease, all those things.
Michael, that's at quite a few different levels above where we are in Australia with Ubuntu. What we found is it's easy in South Africa, with third world country where there is no electricity, people are hungry. Give them an idea, they'll take it with open arms. But in Australia, everyone's got everything, we're pretty happy, pretty complacent. We here are all with the same consciousness of what's going on, but to the people out there, trying to actually get one hour a week of them and get people together, it's near on not impossible, but that's where 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 you are when the actual system's working, but it's actually people know they've seen the factory farmed animals. They still go out and buy it. They still throw waste. Like they've seen the waste in the ocean. If that doesn't shock them into doing what they're doing, how if Ubuntu share go in a nice picketed neighbourhood, say, hey, I'm gonna disturb your whole way of life now because
So you're suggesting that everyone is happy with life? No, that's not what people showed last night. Nobody, not one person put their hand up and said they're happy with what the government is doing.
They're not, but we happily.
Consciousness.
Can I tell you what the situation is? Because at this stage, no one is presenting the people with an alternative. So they're complacent because there is no alternative. The moment there is an alternative, they'll very quickly move to a new alternative because they automatically know, inside their hearts, they know this is a better system.
Yeah.
I don't think it's about the complacency is because there is no alternative.
And
So just provide the alternative and people will shift very quickly.
Michael, here we have a nanny state too. We have a nanny state. The state looks after you. It looks after your medical needs, your Centrelink or whatever.
Yeah.
And I work with people where they suckle off the state. And it is a disease and addiction.
Yes.
And it's very hard to walk away from it. Why would I change? Even if I'm under a pile of shit, this is nice and warm. And this is really what is happening. And really the government basically wants everyone to suckle off its breast for a minute amount, just enough to eat. But they're all practically asleep. All they do, I watch Facebook and all the other stuff. What did you have? Where did you go? And I'm just saddened. Even my boys are similar to that. You can't discuss them. They roll their eyes and they go, Mum, you can't change. And it's really sad because they went like that. When we sent them to school, we lost our kids. You're not sending your kids to school, guys. It really is so disturbing that you talk to people and they think you're absolutely insane. You really do. I work in the medical health system. I work in medical research, cutting edge stuff. You try and tell them about alternatives. I go to conferences every year, sitting discussing how we're curing cancer. I've been doing this for 17 years. We have not done one little thing. Not one thing. Just a better way of killing cells until they become resistant, and it's frustrating. Honestly, it is. We're not doing anything. Billions of dollars are thrown at cancer research at the moment. Yeah. I'm part of it. And we're not doing anything. We have not discovered one thing yet. What causes cancer? Why is it so prominent in society? And I discuss it with my patients. And they go, we don't know. We just don't know. And they don't want to know. No one wants to ask, why is cancer so prominent? People are so apathetic. It's unbelievable.
So who wants to have a shot at that? No, I don't want to be the one to answer all the questions. I want you to answer the questions.
Okay. I think what we're talking about a shift in consciousness. And I think Michael had it in that we need to start small. We need to start small in those places that will embrace it. Yeah. We need to start to bring forth that kernel of inspiration, because people will be inspired. People only lie down and not do anything because something inside them sees hopelessness. Yes. Because they look at the world around them and they see evidence of hopelessness. Yes. But I tell you, you put inspiration in front of those people, something that calls to something that I believe is in us all. All of us want this. All of us yearn in our hearts for freedom. All of us feel that call that calls us here to be in this room, that goes, we know there's something better. We know there's something beyond what we currently exist and live. And if we come together, inspire one another, start small, these things grow organically. When things grow organically, you start with a seed. And the seed, it sprouts, and you nurture it with what you have. So you bring around it those things that believe in the seed. And from that, the seed will organically grow. If you try and do everything all at once, there's not enough to sustain it. So you start and you grow what you can to make it sustainable. So it grows, and just like what Michael says, inspiration will do the rest, because people will feel it. It will be beyond what they know. It will be beyond necessarily what they even understand. But when they feel it, when they see it, something in them will arise. And I believe this is true.
And all you have to do is achieve this in one tiny little community. Now, instead of doing what you just did, and I'm not criticizing you, do the opposite. Okay? Just think about what you did and see all the problems and the potential obstacles and the apathy and see the opposite. Go out there and say, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this apathy. I'm going to do what I can to change it. I'm going to be the seed of consciousness where I live and in my community. And if the others don't get it, it's their problem. I'm not going to stop because they're going to pull me down. And I know that the cure for all disease has been found. Just the fact that the pharmaceutical companies I work with are a bunch of crooks doesn't mean I'm going to let them get on top of me. And you spread that knowledge and that information and that inspiration to others. Be the seed of consciousness and inspire the others to know that there's more, even though they might lock themselves in their own little prisons. Let them know that there's more. There's an infinite world of abundance out there. And stop putting ourselves into our own little prisons. And
I do mine
things,
thing, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Spread colloidal
Yes.
silver
Yes.
30 years ago. I do all sorts of alternative stuff. But the thing is, the majority of people just follow the status quo, and you try and offer them, and until they're dying, they come to me when they're on their deathbed. They used to come to me on their deathbed, which is a bit hard to fix. When they're diagnosed, they will go with the chemo, because that's the status quo. You try to get it in their brains. That's, please, you can do something about it. The fear, as you said, is the fear.
Just
where do we
Just
start?
remember that you're referring to the medical aspect of it very specifically,
this
the
is
medical.
just a small
Okay, so this is
aspect,
just one
Very small.
element of this. And again, if we had to win the election in one little town, guess what we're going to do in our hospital? We're going to bring this guy with these sound frequencies and we're going to start curing cancer. Are we going to ask permission to do that? No. Because once the people come there and they get cured of cancer, do you think the government's going to stop us? Let them try. And this is what we got to start doing. Stop asking for permission. We're the people. They are our servants. They're supposed to be serving us. They're not serving us. Okay? Stop being the slaves. Let's take back what belongs to us. It's this slave mentality that keeps us downtrodden. And the municipalities are supposed to be, the mayor is supposed to be the servant of the people. They're supposed to do everything that we want. They do exactly the opposite. So as the mayor, I will do everything the people want. Free energy, free electricity, community projects, abundance, free healthcare, cures for all disease. When is the government going to try and stop us? Because once we do this in one little town, it's going to take days for it to spread to others. Not weeks, days. Literally. And that's how this virus grows exponentially, this virus of consciousness. That's why this is a critical opportunity for us to inject this virus of consciousness into one tiny little municipality and let the virus consume the beast. Where do we go?
Just coming out of the strobe light, which is like it's quite beautiful milestone. But to bring it back, and I respect everything everybody's bringing to the table. You were talking about the expansion of the township, the businesses, the external businesses. If everybody's, theoretically, if everybody's only given 3 hours a week, the admin will fall apart. You must have people
In-house
this
administrator.
full-time
Yes.
at the admin core. And obviously it's going to be their passion.
Yes. And you get people that are passionate about project management, as there are people like Michelangelo. And this is the answer to who's going to shovel the crap. There are as many passionate chemical engineers who want to solve the problem of sewage as there are, Leonardo da Vinci's who want to paint the next masterpiece.
Yeah, the admin will have to, the organisation will have to be 100%.
Yes.
Continuous.
And because of the technological capacity that we have, it's going to be a lot easier. And also, we don't have to keep the paperwork, right? We're not worried about the money and the paperwork and the taxes and all that crap. That takes up 90% of the paperwork right now. Is the financial stuff and the accountants and the lawyers, and then somebody sues you for this. Then you're in court for the next 2 years because of you did something wrong here, and then it's a bloody mess. So I'd say probably 70% or 80% of the admin falls away, and it's just coordinational structure that comes in. What do we need where, and who's going to do it, and how do we implement it? And once you've figured that out, then you've got your systems going. And it's exciting because those systems already exist. We have those systems in place. It's just applying it slightly differently to this new community of abundance. So now what happens is now we've created our community of abundance and we're just really doing well, and all the others follow suit. So this is the transitional phase, right? I hope you realize that we're talking about this is phase one. Then what happens next is that once all the other communities start going the same way, we no longer have to sell stuff. And this is actually the reason why we create 3 times as much, is not to sell in future, but to give away and share. So in the beginning, it's to sell and create the abundance, and eventually that extra 2/3 that we create, it might be 5/3, it might be 10 times as much as what we create, based on what the needs are. So eventually, the towns will almost become like self-governing organisms, like we had the city-states in ancient times. And the people rule that and govern that town, and there's a collaborative structure between all the towns and sharing, because some towns can grow mangoes, other towns can grow cherries, and other towns can grow strawberries, and you can't do this, but you can do that. Some towns have snow, some towns have beaches, and not everybody wants to live on the beach. Some people love to live in the mountains in the snow. I hate that idea, but some people love it, And that's the thing. There are as many people as there are passions, or many passions as there are people. And that's the beautiful thing. Because often you get people, everybody is going to want to live on the beach. Really? Not everybody. Everybody's going to want to live on the river. No, not everybody. And that's the amazing thing. And maybe what you decide is, once you've lived on the beach for a while, say, I'm tired of this, I want to go live in the mountains. Because you can. So you can move to the mountains and no one's going to stop you. As long as you participate in that community and you are contributing benefactor or contributing participant, then you just keep contributing. And this is how it expands. And the thing is that whatever solutions we don't have now, doesn't matter. They'll come from within the community. So this is why I call it a self-correcting system. No matter what problem you throw at it, it always corrects itself for the best outcome of the community. So we don't have to have all the solutions now. We have to have the foundational structure, the idea, the plan of action, the initiation point. After that, it rises out of those foundations and creates its own structure that in 10 years of sharing this, it just gets stronger and stronger. So right now, the only thing we need to do is go out and do something about it. So in South Africa, you now know what we're doing about it. I think in Australia, there's some obvious things that can happen here. I'm going to leave that up to you. Those that want to engage with us, please do so that we can share with you what we're doing and our successes. And they are very simple steps, and we've learned a great deal. So we can share a lot of practical experience with you already at this stage. As this grows, and as we grow through the municipal elections next year, some interesting things are going to happen. If we do get the funding that we expect to get, there's no doubt that we're going to win at least one municipality, because it's all about being visible and getting to the people. And once again, you need the money. Although, as I said, every day we get phone calls from the furthest parts of South Africa, people that want to stand and represent Ubuntu, which is just blowing my mind. And it was the activation in Soweto that seems to have done it. My last workshop before I left in Soweto, and that's just taken off. Because in South Africa, what happens in Soweto spreads to the country like a wildfire.